Keegan Nickoson, one of the
How we doing?
Yeah, on the Bearcats beat, baby. Keegan, it's nice to see your handsome face, and not just at Planet Fitness from time to time. Keegan's recently married, and I'm going to start off this interview with this. My wife works out at Hanover Reserve from time to time as a bartender.
Okay.
Which is where you got married. And she came back one night on a random, I forget if it was a Friday or a Saturday, but she comes back.
Friday.
And she goes, man, we just had this party. We just had this wedding. It was a bunch of Ross kids, and it got out of control. Got absolutely out of control. So I'm giving you kudos on throwing a heck of a party, Keegan.
If you give like 200 Ross people unlimited Busch Light on draft, it's gonna get out of control. And that's what happened. So I'm happy we could deliver a fun night. I think at some point I was on a table with my beautiful bride, like dancing, man. Like standing on the table. So it was a fun one.
Rams on elevated surfaces. That's exactly what you need, Keith. All right, let's talk about the UC Bearcats. Thank you so much for coming on here. So UC, I feel like coming into this year, there was kind of a lot of questions about where this football program was heading. Coach Satterfield, there was a lot of fans that weren't really happy with the way that he was taking it. Obviously, they are ranked right now. They are undefeated in the Big 12. How realistic are the Bearcats' chances at winning this big boy conference in the Big 12?
I think it's very realistic. And I was talking with Dave Simone, who's kind of on our team at Bearcat Journal, last night on a podcast, and he said, I did not think at this point in the year that UC would be going into a game against Utah, and where if they lost the game against Utah, they would still have a legitimate path to making the Big 12 championship game. Because you see how like this season's shaking out in the Big 12. Texas Tech loses to Arizona State, and now they have to play BYU next weekend. And that's going to be a huge game with massive implications, whether UC beats Utah or not. Houston has one loss in the Big 12, and they have a pretty manageable schedule to end the season. They could very easily win out. And then UC can win out as well. They're a legitimately good team. They have good leadership on offense. They have a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. The defense has been kind of suspect at times, but they have playmakers and they play to their identity. And I think a lot that frustrates a lot of people sometimes when you're playing loose coverage and giving up a lot of passing yards. But they've kept teams out of the end zone. And that's the name of the game on defense, obviously. Mm-hmm. But it all comes down to Brendan Sorsby. He's a kind of a dark horse Heisman guy right now. He isn't like exactly blowing up the stat sheets, but he's playing really, really efficient and successful football. I think it's 22 touchdowns, 1 interception, 7 rushing touchdowns, just under 500 rushing yards. And he's a really, really good leader. And I think his decision to stay and really commit to UC right after last season, literally after the last game, spoke to what he wanted to build, and you're starting to see that result kind of pander out here in the season.
Based off, I was taking a look at the bedroom behind you. Are you okay? Are you like you're allowed to put stuff on the walls here, Keith?
Oh my
gosh. You're allowed to.
I'm in witness.
Blink twice. Blink twice if you're not okay. Okay, so just blink twice.
I look like I'm in witness protection. I'm in the grinding part of my 20s, and me and my wife are staying in the in-laws' basement. So this is kind of the room next to our room. Like this used to be just a random recliner back there.
Oh,
there wasn't even a bed. It was just a recliner sitting in the middle of the room. So this is an upgrade from what it used to be.
That would be a startling thing to walk into a room and there's just a recliner sitting in the middle of the room. You mentioned Brendan Sorsby, and you mentioned some people are going like, hey, this guy has a dark horse chance to win the Heisman. He's in his second year at UC. What have you seen? What are the biggest improvements? What are the big steps that you've seen Sorsby take from last year to this year?
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't think he's playing that much better of football compared to what he played last year. The difference is he has the weapons in Cyrus Allen, Caleb Goody, Jeff Caldwell, Noah Jennings, and Isaiah Johnson that they didn't have last year. and these guys are creating separation. The trust that they have is there. I mean, he trusts all his receivers 1 through 6, especially when you add in Joe Royer. And then also the turnover-worthy plays are really down. The catastrophic turnovers are down. And, you know, a lot of the times you see him just take a dump off to Evan Pryor, and he ends up getting like 10 yards because he's a really talented running back. When last year he would try to stretch it downfield or force something in a window that just wasn't there, and then it ends up being a turnover. So you're starting to see him play really efficient football. And when he's not turning the ball over, you can really see just how talented he is as a quarterback, how quick his release is, how confident he throws the ball, and kind of how much he can stretch the field. And it's been a ton of fun to watch. I think he will probably go down as one of the best quarterbacks to ever come through Cincinnati. Right up there with Tony Pike. He probably is the best pure thrower. And I think Tony Pike would even tell you that, as a guy who has won a lot of games at Cincinnati and seen what it takes to have success. I know Tony Pike loves watching Brendan Sorsby play. Yeah,
it's when you watch him, sometimes you watch a guy like when Des Ridder was here, won a lot of games.
Yeah.
You didn't always see the talent, right? You obviously was winning, controlling the game. You watch Sorsby play and you're like, oh, this dude's a baller. This dude's got some skill. Outside of Sorsby, who are some unsung heroes on this roster?
Ooh, that's a really good question. The first one that comes to mind is Noah Jennings. He's a Charleston Southern transfer who came in this past transfer portal class. He's probably the number 4 option as a receiver, but he plays like a number 1 option. Like Sorsby takes shots downfield and fits it into tight windows to Noah Jennings, and he's made some huge plays this year. If you recall the Kansas game, they had to go down with, I think, under 2 minutes left. They had a 4th and 10, and he makes this huge one-handed catch and leads them to a touchdown later in that drive, which leads them to a win. And if they lose that game, which they were literally an inch away from losing, there's no telling about what happens the rest of the season and where this team is at. But that game and that win has really vaulted them into this position. I'll go to the defensive side of the ball. I think a lot of people who watch Cincinnati and are fans of Cincinnati know about Jake Golday. But this kid, like, he's going to start in the NFL for 10 years. Like, I am so confident in saying that. He's got like 4.4, 4.5 speed. He's 6'4", and he's a converted defensive end. So his ability in pass rush is really there. And he's kind of that guy that, you know, if there's a big spot on 3rd down and it's late in the game and he can flip that switch of I need to make a play, he's going to go make the play. UC's player personnel department just found this guy out of nowhere at Central Arkansas, got him on campus, and then the immediate returns last season were huge, and this season he's even better. And I think earlier in the season he was getting talk for like a possible 1st-round pick based off what scouts were seeing. It's kind of faded a little bit now, but for a linebacker to even go in the top 2, top 3 round, it's very impressive, and it's proof that you're one of the best linebackers in the country.
What's the biggest test going forward? The one this weekend, this Saturday?
This game gives me the most pause in picking Cincinnati to win. I think the rest of the games throughout the season right now, I would pick Cincinnati to win against BYU at home, against Arizona at home, and then finish off with TCU in Dallas. I think TCU is a good team, and that can definitely give UC a lot of trouble, and TCU can win that game. But if they lose this game, they could be playing TCU for a chance to play in the Big 12 championship, depending on what else happens throughout the Big 12 race. So this is probably the toughest test. But, I mean, you look at Utah, I don't see how this is a 10-point spread unless they think Evan Pryor is just that good, because he's going to end up missing this game with a lower body injury. But the good teams they've played – they beat Arizona State when Jeff Sims started. So Sam Leavitt wasn't playing for Arizona State. And then they lost to BYU at BYU. And then they got walloped at home against Texas Tech. So I think that this is a really big pressure game for Utah, because they're kind of in a scenario where if you lose, you're done and you're out of the race. And I wouldn't want to be where Devin Dampier is right now. He didn't start last week. They bring in a true freshman quarterback, and he throws for like 300 yards and runs for 150. scores like 4 touchdowns. It's looking like Dampier is going to start, and if he makes that early mistake, everyone on the sideline, every fan in the stands is going to start thinking, oh gosh, we should probably go back to that true freshman. Playing with that pressure is tough, and maybe he can throw a turnover or two. What I will say is I'm going to brag on myself here.
Go ahead.
In the preseason staff predictions, I picked UC to go 9-3. Right now I'm 8-0 on my game predictions, and I picked Utah to win this game. So I'm still going to pick Utah just on the principle of trusting myself and trusting how good I am at my job, of course.
Of course.
And then we'll see how it goes down the line. But UC can very much win this game. I think the spread should be closer to 5, 4.5. So if you're a bettor, I would advise to pick UC to cover. I think they're really poised. They're experienced. It could honestly come down to like a false start in the fourth quarter that kills a drive, or a missed field goal on either side of the coin.
Earlier in the interview, I talked about how coming into this year, it seemed like Coach Satterfield was on thin ice coming into this year. That was the sentiment, at least amongst fans. One, was that the sentiment that you read from the room, which was, hey, this thing might be on thin ice, like his job might be in peril if the season doesn't go well? And two, he pretty clearly has saved his job a little bit more. Do you think he can continue to build on what he's done this year?
Yeah, I think the sentiment coming into this year was definitely that he was on thin ice. I don't know what it would have specifically taken for John Cunningham to pull the trigger on firing him. I think 6-6, he would have been safe. Anything below that, and you have to have a serious conversation. And in terms of what he can build going forward, it's going to be tough. I mean, if they finish this year 10-2 and Sorsby continues playing well, I could see him exiting for the draft. I could see a lot of scouts saying, this is the kind of guy we want. We want a guy that makes plays with his legs. He's confident with the ball. He's accurate. And he's a pro with the media already, so there's no seasoning that has to happen there. You lose Jake Golday. You lose Dante Corleone. You lose Joe Royer, Cyrus Allen, Jeff Caldwell. Gavin Gerhardt's gone. You return some O-line next year, but the biggest thing you have to do on is hit on a quarterback in the portal. And, they're losing Jack Dingle as well, a linebacker, other defensive linemen. A lot of their DBs are in their last year of eligibility. So it's going to be bringing in a lot of guys. Like, it's going to be a portal class where they bring in a lot of guys that are expected to contribute immediately. So I wouldn't go into next season confident that they're going to have this success. I would say, just based off what the player personnel department's been able to do over the past 2 years, having to replenish a full roster, I would say they'd be confident enough to be 7-5 or 8-4. That just the early returns, but it depends on who you get at the quarterback position, because obviously, as you've seen, that's what determines everything.
Obviously, when you're bringing in a bunch of guys through the transfer portal, having a season like you're having this year makes it a much more attractive landing spot. It's much easier to tell a kid, like, hey, look what we're doing right here, right now, and you can be a part of this next year. Like, you can attribute to what we're doing here next year. So it's pretty timely for Coach Satterfield in that regard. Let's flip it over to the hardwood. Basketball starts next week. College basketball starts next month. How good are the Cats going to be this year?
I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. Because, last year I was thinking this is going to be a 3 or 4 seed. They're going to finish like around the top of the Big 12. There's just too much talent. Like, there's no way it can't happen. And then Jizzle James struggles. Dylan Mitchell, he was consistent, but he didn't exactly provide what UC thought they were going to get from him. Dan Skillings had a really disappointing year. And basically everyone was bad besides Day Thomas. So I have no idea. I've kind of decided that I'm not putting any stock into what I see from Cincinnati until the start of conference play, because it's 2 very different seasons, and it can go up and down and change so much in the matter of 2 weeks. If they end up beating Louisville, that's when I'll be like, okay, we might have a pretty good team on our hands. But the beating up of like non-conference like unranked opponents, they played Georgia and Clemson. They play Xavier and Dayton. I think those are 4 games that they should have a really good chance to win all of them. And then Louisville will be a tough one because we've seen opposing fans come into Heritage Bank Center and take that thing over before. So I wouldn't be surprised if Louisville fans did it. So that's going to be a tough atmosphere. But, I mean, last year we saw them beat Georgia Tech by like 35 points in Atlanta. And then you're thinking this team is so, so, so good. And then it just goes straight downhill at the start of the Big 12 play. When I was looking at the schedule yesterday, it's kind of clear that they have 4 big home games. I think it's Baylor, Iowa State, Houston. I have it right here. Baylor, Iowa State, Houston, BYU. I think they have to win 2 out of 4 of those to be confident that they're going to make the tournament. You have to get those big quad 1 wins at home, and then you might have to steal 1 big road game. But the thing that they've struggled with is they haven't gotten those big wins in large part. They beat Texas Tech and BYU since they joined the Big 12. And they've also stumbled against the back half of the conference.
Right.
Like they've got those bad losses to West Virginia, Oklahoma State, and those kind of teams. So you've got to steal the big game and you've got to take care of business when you can. This is kind of the best put together roster Wes Miller's had at Cincinnati, but that still right now is on paper. Losing Jalen Haynes is big. They have to get more creative with how they're going to score down low. So I have no idea how good they're going to be. And I don't think we'll know until the first 2 weeks of the Big 12 play in January.